Welcome to Diving into Writing with me, Lucinda Pebre and Marielle Smith. Join us as we dive beyond the surface of our writing practice. Hi Marielle.
Hey Lou.
How are you today?
I'm a little bit nervous about what we're about to do. How about you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, but I feel that's mainly through ignorance. So I'm not quite sure what we're about to do.
Very intimate with that fear.
So do you want to explain what we're about to do?
Yes, let's do that. So what we're doing today is we're doing an Akashic Records reading for Lucinda. And the way I've been doing it recently is I do the reading offline and then I finish it off with a call. So I already did the reading an hour ago, and this is the call. So during this call, I'm going to share with you what came up. There's room for you to ask questions, and if I need to elaborate on something or clarify something, there's room for that. Yeah, so we're just going to dig into what's holding you back, basically.
Okay. Do I need to be afraid?
No, not at all. Shall I first explain a little bit to our audience what the Akashic Records are?
Yes, and remind me because I don't really know.
I think we talked about it a little bit on the show, but not in depth. Okay, so you allowed me to do this without actually knowing what I was going to do. That's interesting.
It's true.
So the Akashic Records, you can sort of visualize it as a metaphysical library, like it's like an archive. It's like you can, for those who know that kind of language, some people describe it as being on the astral plane. So it's not like in a physical, it's not a physical archive. So it is where all soul records, all events that have happened in the world, past, present, future, we call it all directions of time and space. Everything is gathered there. So you can go in, you can visit the Akashic Records. You can do this through meditation. You can do this by making an appointment with an Akashic Records reader like I am. And then that person goes in for you with your consent and tries to find the answers to the questions that you're having or the struggles that you're having, try to shed some light on that. But yeah, in the Akashic Records, there's no time and space, so everything happens at the same time. But so sometimes you're struggling with something in your life. This is why people come for a reading. Most often, when there's something you're struggling with in your life and you've tried so many things to fix this thing or to make it better, and you just keep running into the same kind of wall. And sometimes, so this is like, I believe in past lives, right? And Akashic Records gives you access to that. That doesn't mean that all readings I do lead me back to a past life, because sometimes what's holding you back now is something that happened in like your early life, and it might be something that either you don't remember or you remember in a particular way, and the Akashic Records will allow you to see it from a different perspective, so you have greater understanding and can let go of what happened, or at least let go of the thing that's holding you back because of what happened. But I'm very used to being sort of dragged into a past life and then seeing that unfold and then seeing, okay, so this happened in this past life. And how does it affect the person now? Because there's often a link, because when we're born, we do bring some of that baggage with us.
So you only see certain elements?
Yeah, I will see what I'm asking about.
Yeah.
Right? I'm also there's always things I'm not allowed to ask about, and then I get no answer. And that is either because it's not up to me to ask that question, it's not up to the reader to hear that yet. Because the thing about the Akashic Records, some people are a bit scared of it, but the thing about the Akashic Records is that it will never show you what you're not ready to hear or know about.
Yeah.
So it's a very safe space to delve in, because if on a soul level you're not ready to deal with a certain something, it will not be shown to you.
Okay.
So this is why when you go back in later, other things might come to the surface relating to the issue that you've already gone into, depending on how layered it is. Like sometimes something is just a thing, like a blip on your radar, and once you've addressed the blip is gone, and you just move on without this holding you back. But sometimes it's more like an onion. So every time you go in, you peel back more layers and there's more understanding, and you free yourself up over time instead of like in one session. And it really depends on the issue that you're addressing.
So this reading should help me move forward.
That's exactly what Akashic Records readings are about. It's trying to figure out where certain things coming from so that you can move forward with whatever is holding you back. So it's literally, like I said, like you can visualize it as a library. It is there for you. I mean, and also because like when we go in, there's literally, not literally, because not physically, but I will be reading books. There's like on the, like I see books around me.
Oh,
so you just go find the right.
I like that.
Yeah, and for me, the fun part is that everyone's library looks different. But if you have another Akashic Records reader, they'll probably see your library different as well. So I've never been to the same space. My space obviously always looks the same to me. And when I do more readings for one person, the library is the same. It can change, right? Like it can, let's say, like a library can be a derelict building, right? Which is, represents something. And then as we work through whatever the person is struggling with, sometimes I go back in and I realize, oh wait, that wall in the library has been replaced. So you see the
okay. I like this.
Yeah, I had the same with my own building, which looked really weird initially, and it's like now it's coming together. As you heal certain parts, you're so it's very that's very metaphorical, right? I love that. So sometimes ask me.
So can you tell me what my library looked like to you?
I am going to do that, because that is for me, it's always relevant to people. But sometimes people are like, oh, that makes so much sense. And that sometimes things already start to click as soon as I describe the library. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, I like those colors, but that's like it. So it very depends. Okay. So another thing you need to know about me personally, and this is different for every Akashic Records readings. Do you know what the psychic clairs are, the clair senses? You know the word clairvoyance?
I do, yeah.
So there's 4 to 6 clairs. People are some say it's 4, some say it's 5, some say it's 6. The 4 common ones are clairvoyance, which means clear seeing. There's clairaudience, which means clear hearing. There's clairsentience, which means clear feeling. And then there's claircognizance, which means clear knowing. So my strongest is clairaudience. So for me, when I go in, you can visualize, I sit at my living room table usually with a notebook, and I ask questions out loud and I get answers back. So usually what I will report is often literally the phrases I get after I ask a question. So when I go in, it's literally a back and forth between whoever is speaking to me. That could be your record keepers. There's always going to be people from your soul group, your soul family, who are not incarnated in this life, who are taking care of your library. And in the lives that you are not incarnated, you'll be taking care of their library. So usually I just report the answers direct, like literally what I heard. I have, like, over the years, some of the other senses have also developed, so I see clearer now. So sometimes I can tell people, okay, so this life was in this era because people were dressed like this, because I could see that. And my clear knowing and clear feeling, like, especially I've been doing this a lot more this year because I want to develop this into a paid offering to writers who are really blocked with something. And my clairsentience, or the clear feeling, it's happening a lot now that I'm in the records and I just feel something. Like, I can't see it, I can't hear it, but I just have this sense of something. And that's a rather new thing for me, because that wasn't really well developed before I started. Like I do this more often. I almost do this weekly now. So it's still developing, which I find always really interesting.
So it's like anything, the more you practice it,
Yes.
the clearer it becomes, or the more proficient you become.
Yeah, when clairaudience became, when I became aware of that, that was when I was initiated into Reiki. And it's very common for people who practice Reiki that if you're initiated, one of the clairs will pop up as your preferred clair. So for me, it was immediately clairaudient, right? But now, of course, like the more you engage with it, like you said, with everything, like it's the practice, the other ones are popping up as well, which is good because it just makes for more complete readings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A more complete experience for you as well.
Yeah, and it's easier because sometimes I'm like, because the thing about the Akashic Records reading is you have to ask your questions in a particular way, and sometimes you don't get an answer just because you're not asking you might be asking the right question but with the wrong words. So sometimes it's sometimes it's easier just to sense something instead of having to ask the question specifically. Yeah. So that is, yeah. So yeah, this is something that I'm still developing, and I'm having great fun doing it, which is why we thought it was a good idea to do one live here. Which I've never done this. I've never done this before, obviously, but let's see. It is not live, and I know if anything that comes up freaks you out, we're not gonna actually share this with our audience. So. But this is an experience for me as well, because I know we've talked about this on the show for sure, is that I've been a bit wary sharing these things about myself with other people, which is a very common in people. And I see it as well. I see it a lot with people I read for as well. Like we call it like the collective witch wound, like, because there was a time, and it was a long time, it was a long stretch of time in which if you were able to do these things, you ended up either drowned or on like hung or burned. So there is this sort of a lot of, not only women, actually men as well, are still struggling to come to terms with their spirituality and their psychic skills, because this is like the first time that nobody's running after us with a pitchfork.
Well, not physically, but I suppose there is still the social, as in it can be ridiculed or.
Yeah. And that is like, I was brought up in a household in which there was no space for religion, there was no space for spirituality. And some people think that being raised without religion opens you up for spirituality, but actually being raised within religion, no matter how strict, it sets you up for the idea that there's something else. So you might reject the religion,
that's true,
but you are open to rituals, prayer, so affirmation, stuff like that. For me, that's still like speaking out loud the things that I want in my life. That's still really odd to me, because it's so like I really grew up in a household where there was no space. Like if somebody did Reiki, it was ridiculed. And like I remember when I was younger, we had this space in my hometown that, where they have like, what's it called? It's like a it's like a paranormal convention kind of thing. So you can go there.
Like a spiritual fair.
Yes. And that was like, so everybody was laughing about that. And if somebody said, "Oh, I actually went and I had a really nice talk with this lady with a crystal ball or whatever," then everybody was like, "Oh, really?" And then behind the person's back, it would be like, they were like snickering and like laughing. Like, "Oh my God!" Like, so that's kind of so it took long for me. I'm still embracing it. I'm not done yet. I don't think I'm fully there yet. So I'm still embracing it. But
you're taking a big step towards it.
That's why I was really nervous. I am really nervous about this, because this is like, hello world, this is what I do. And it's one thing to say it, right? Like I started sharing some of the reviews of the Akashic Records I've done this year on Facebook. It's one thing to say, yes, I do this. And it's another thing for people to hear me on audio doing the thing. Yeah, that's a completely...
Yeah.
But let's do the thing. And let's see how...
Yeah, and then see if we want to put it out there.
Yes. And it's for me, it's also because I always, like, I've only had it once. I need to remind myself of that. I only had it once that a person said, I'm not sure this resonates. But every other time, like the response I got was like overwhelmingly, like they were like, oh my God, this is like shit, right? And but I'm still like the fear that I'm not seeing these things, and you're going to be like, this is bullshit. This doesn't resonate on any level with me. I mean, that is a real possibility. So it's always a bit scary.
But that might be my defenses. How do I know that if that happens, how do I know that's not my defenses?
I don't know this about the other person either, because they might not have been ready, even though they are ready on the soul level, or like their higher self might be ready to hear this. That doesn't mean that their current incarnation is ready to deal with these things.
Yeah, exactly.
So it might not have been me. But that's really difficult, because you're not going to say to someone, it doesn't resonate because you're not ready.
Yes.
That's not and especially because this is a rather vulnerable thing, because like sometimes very particular things come up. You share really sensitive things sometimes with people, and so you can't just go and say, well, this is on you, this is not me, which I don't know for sure, of course, right? But so that might happen. You might go like, this is nonsense, just because you're not ready to deal with it. Because obviously, and this is something for the listeners to sort of anticipate on. This is what I do. I send people a form, and you fill in the form, and it has questions like, what are you struggling with? What have you done? What could be related to the struggle, etc. And you very purposefully did not mention your marketing issues. And I promised you that I was going to ask anyway while I was in there. So this is also for the listeners to be like, oh, so that's going to come up. So let's see if you're ready. You might get really defensive when we reach that part, but let's see.
Exactly.
Lou, it's a safe space. It's just us. Just forget for a moment that we have listeners.
Okay.
So here it comes. Your library was a very lovely building, actually, a very lovely space. It had like really high ceilings. There was like huge panes of glass, like for windows. So there was like, I couldn't actually, I don't know what was outside, because I mean, I could see, it's not like they were blinded, but I just, apparently it wasn't relevant what I was looking at. It was so bright. There was so much like natural daylight. It was lovely. And then when I looked up and over my shoulder, there was this sort of like mezzanine level. And I could just see that there was lined with bookcases.
Yeah, I can see it. I've got my eyes shut, and I'm trying to imagine.
So I was downstairs, and what I always do, sometimes I end up in the room with the right book, but usually I have to start asking the questions, and then they'll guide me to where I need to. So once I started like talking about the stuff that you wrote down in the form, yes, I was led upstairs. And what I really loved, and I don't know if that resonates with you, but it was like the space really blended the old with the modern. So there was like lots of wood, but also lots of glass. And like it was such. I know, I just loved it. It was really nice. So I saw your book. There was like a low table. So the table was like old, sort of an antique, right? It was a low table, and it was sitting in front of like the railing. Of the railing of the mezzanine. So the way you were supposed to sit behind the table, like it was a carpet so there wasn't a chair or anything, it was just a carpet. You were forced to face the railing, and through the railing you could see through the windows. So it was a very open feeling. Like, so I've been in libraries where the book was hidden, and the only way to read it was to sort of like hide in this sort of corner where nobody could see you. But this felt very open. Like from the position, I could see the entire space, and I could see outside, even though, as I told you, I couldn't see what was outside, but like, so it was very open and facing the world.
Yeah.
Sense I got. Okay. So first question I asked, why does Lucinda struggle to take action to achieve her goals, which is one of the things you wrote down in your form. And then I immediately got this feeling of being pulled in all directions. And so I immediately felt like this is not necessarily this life, but it's like older. And in that life, you were pulled in all directions to the extent that you didn't even know what you wanted for yourself. There was no space for that because there were so many things that needed to be done. And the other thing popped up immediately was that there was never any space to ask yourself, which of course is quite common because, again, like the witch wound, for some women, the last couple of generations, like this sort of era we're in now, is the first time that women started to have space to consider what they want in life and maybe want something different. So it's very common when I read for women who were women in the past life, because you could have been a man in a past life. That happens a lot. So sometimes something really traumatic happens, and sometimes life just happened, and you're still, dealing with the repercussions of having lived through the ages as a woman. So I asked then, what happened in this particular life? So the answer I got was, well, nothing specifically. It was just how Lucinda lived her life until the end. So basically, from the moment you were born to the moment you died, I did get the feeling that you lived your life fully. So there were no like traumatic deaths or something, but there was never any space for you. There was always things that needed other people and other obligations that were pulling at you. So I'm getting the stretched thin feeling, like no space to think for yourself. So then I asked, because there wasn't any trauma or something. I wanted to double check by asking, did this pattern show up in more lives? And then I got yes, but it wasn't always felt that strongly. It very much dependent on your station in life. So depending on like what class you ended up in, sometimes it was it could be more or less of a burden because there were more or less responsibilities. Like if in a particular life, you're like a working class mother with like a litter of children, because there was no, like there was no anticonception, nothing. And you had to work ridiculous hours and you had to have all these mouths to feed and clothes to mend. Like that's a different type of being pulled in all directions than being a lady of a particular class. And then the obligations are more like, okay, social events, marrying the right person, making sure that you produce an heir, shit like that. So it's a different. So it wasn't. It was always felt, but there wasn't always as like even if you had time to yourself, there's no space to think for yourself because that's just not what society gives you space for as a woman. Not back then.
I still feel an element of that now.
Yeah, so my next question was, how is this pattern affecting Lucinda's current life? Because that's, of course, what we want to know. Like, how is it affecting and what can we do to stop that? And then I got Lucinda's repeating what she knows. So this is something that's literally ingrained in your DNA from living so many lives in a similar way. So then I started digging a bit by asking, did Lucinda ever want to say no to any of the things or people pulling at her? And I got, yes, of course. So I continued conversation. Why didn't she? And then I got, that was a combination of the time. So just the way, society was working at the time and what was expected. And also not knowing what you would do with your time if you had any to yourself. So again, there's no space to think for yourself and even to figure out what you might have wanted, right? Because there wasn't any of that kind of freedom.
Yeah.
So I also asked, just digging a little deeper, did she add any things to her schedule, like when there was time, to avoid that particular question? What do I want? And then I got some lives. Yes, that was definitely the case, that you also kept yourself busy because with too much space, you start thinking, and thinking was dangerous. Because what if you realize that you wanted something else and there's no space for that? Like there's something more tragic than that. So some lives you try to protect yourself from that by keeping yourself busy. And then other lives, I heard like you were much too busy to contemplate that, right? And that was not because you kept yourself busy. It was because you kept yourself busy because of your station in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I asked, are there things now that she does so in this life while not really wanting to? And I got the lovely answer, yes, obviously. So we talked about this current life. So apparently, according to the Akashic Records, you do things now that you don't actually want to do. So my question then, like, why does she do them? And I got a couple of answers. I got this unawareness. So you not knowing, you not even knowing that you don't want to do X. Right? You just do it because, the other things I got was obligation and love. So you do things out of obligation, you do things out of love. So the unawareness is connected to that. You just do them because you do them. Like you don't even think about why you do them. You just do them.
Yeah.
So then I asked, is there anything that Lucinda can change this lifetime to get better at achieving her goals? And then I got, this is, I love it when they become poetic. I got the phrase, she needs to pull at herself. So instead of letting others pull at you, you need to start pulling at yourself. And then I got the word agent. And I found this really interesting. It's that you need to start doing things from your own power and not because others are pulling at you to do certain things. And this is, for me, this was a really interesting part for me, that this part of the message. This doesn't mean changing what you're doing, but it means that you need to approach it differently. So it's a mindset thing, really.
Okay.
So you get, because I found that really enlightening. It's not necessarily about changing the things that you're doing, but it's coming from a place of, I actively choose to do this instead of I do this without thinking about why I do this, right? So I was like, okay, how will that help, right? Like, because you can literally ask the Akashic Records anything. Like if they want to give you the answer, they will. So I was like, how will that help her? And I got, it will give her more energy, right? Because you're using your power center. So you're generating energy as you make the decision. So you'll have more energy to do the thing.
Yeah.
And I also got that by making those decisions actively, by making it your decision and not somebody else's decision, it will help you realize what you might want to stop doing. So it's
okay.
So it's not about, sometimes the order is sit down, journal, what do you want to do, what you don't want to do, and then cut out what you don't want to do. The advice you're getting here is just keep doing what you're doing, but do it from your own inner power. And then what you shouldn't be doing, that will reveal itself.
Okay.
So it's a different, I'm used to the other way around. So this was very interesting for me. So they're like, don't waste any of your brain space on overthinking, okay, what do I want, what I don't want to do, and how can I cut it out of my life? It's like, just start doing it differently and it will show. So I found that really interesting. Then I asked, how do you feel about that?
Okay, so I think that I've got a tendency to overthink things and then not do them. Or that's part of the problem, is that I feel like I need to be taking action rather than thinking about it, if you know what I mean. Or sitting down and planning what I'm going to do, and then things don't go to plan and I haven't done it, and then you feel like you're failing because you've not achieved it. The other thing that I have a tendency to do is to think, well, you know this because we've talked about it before, but think that I can do way too much just because I want to do it. I want to do all these things. And then obviously I can't, because there isn't an infinite amount of time and I can't stretch time to fit everything in.
It's hilarious that you're getting the advice in this way, right? Because I usually get a lot of, they need to journal about X and Y. to figure this thing out. And you're not getting that.
Mm.
You need to do it differently, and then you'll know.
No, because that would be easy for me to do.
Yeah, but as I was going through this, I was like, this is such an interesting way to go about it. I wonder why, because I've never had this advice, like to go about it this way. And now you're saying this, and I'm like, oh God, yes, that makes, for you as an individual, that makes so much sense. Because otherwise it's going to be another loophole.
No, what you're saying is that I need to change the way that I'm doing it to get different results.
It's not me who's saying that. It's the Akashic Records. I'm just a messenger. None of this is on me, Lou.
They don't want to make it too easy.
Well, they wanna empower you. That, like, Akashic Records about empowerment.
Yeah.
So, and they know you clearly. So that's lovely. I love that. Yeah. So for me, it's like when I say hilarious, I mean, it reminds me of when you read tarot cards and you're like, this is a bitch slap from the universe. This feels a little bit like a bitch slap. It feels like they're saying, we're on to you, Lucinda. Don't mess with us. So great. Okay. So then I asked, because I love digging and I love asking questions that you didn't ask me, didn't ask me to ask, just because I feel that there's something there. So I asked, is creating room for herself, is that something that Lucinda struggles with? And so this was the moment where I wasn't allowed to get near an answer, right? Like a proper, clear.
Okay.
It remained vague. But I did get A. It's not as bad as some women have that, right? Like creating room for themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
But that doesn't mean there's plenty of space for growth.
Yeah.
So you're on the way to doing that, right? Like, as I said, like, you're not one of those women who doesn't have a sense of that at all, right? But that doesn't mean you cannot get better at that, at creating room for yourself.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny because this was the first, and so, like I said, like when I don't get an answer, it can mean not relevant, right? So I'm like, okay. It can also mean you're not supposed to know this. It can mean a lot of things, right? But like I said, I did get this. This was an answer enough for me. It's like, it's enough. It's like a confirmation, or it's affirmative to me. Like, you're not as bad as it could be, but yes, you can. There's more to gain here. So then I asked, and this is always one of my favorite questions: are there any practical things that Lucinda can do to improve this situation? Because it's all funny and great, and well, sometimes it's not as funny. Sometimes it's rather deep to go into the Akashic Records and ask sort of like your questions on a metaphysical level or metaphorical level or astral level, whatever you want to call it. But I do like to get some actual practical advice for people. So I did so this is not journal, so I want you to be clear. I get meditate on what she wants in life and be honest about it. So it didn't say journal, it says meditate.
Oh.
And then I got and then I got the words, dig deeper. So whenever you think you're there, dig deeper.
Okay.
There's something underneath, apparently, that you're not getting at.
It's a bit weird because I had a friend that offered, she does meditation, and she said, do you want to come over and meditate? And I was like, no, shall we just meet for a coffee? Because meditation doesn't really work for me. Well, I didn't say that, actually. I said writing's my meditation. That's what I said.
And I think that, I mean, for me, the same, right? But I also meditate the way it's supposed to be done. I do both, yeah. So this is something. But the sort of like the part that dig deeper. So when you think you've reached it, the Akashic Record is very clear. No, there's something underneath, and you haven't gotten to that yet. So dig deeper there. And then the other thing I got was write down why she wants to hit certain goals. So that can be small goals, big goals, whatever. So write down why she wants to hit certain goals by X date. And I really got this. So this was sort of like also sort of like repeated. Like Lucinda needs to remind herself of her why, like constantly. Why do you want the things you want? So then I asked, because there was other stuff in your form, of course. One of the things you mentioned was that you get distracted by other stories instead of, when you actually want to sit down to write the thing that you're supposed to write, you get distracted by other stories. So I asked about that. And I did not expect this answer at all, and I loved it. It says, what I got was, that just means there's flow. Like that the faucet is open. Like your creative juices are flowing. So and then I asked, because often when somebody gets distracted, it can mean that they're writing the wrong thing, right? So I asked, is that all it means?
Yeah.
That it's just flow? And I got, in this case, yes. So then because I was like, I really need to know this answer. So I was like, so there's nothing wrong with the story she's meant to be working on. And then I got this. There is, but she'll figure out what it is soon. And it'll bring the joy back.
Okay.
It'll bring the joy back.
Yeah.
And what you're going to find is clarity. That's what I got. Okay. So that for me is very affirming, because I often work with people who are stuck because they're actually not working on the right project for them.
Yeah.
And here I'm getting, it's not about the wrong, it's not about that this is not the right project for you. It's that there is something about it that you're still figuring out. But once you do, it'll bring the joy back. Once you have the clarity, it will bring the joy back. But for this particular story.
That's what I've been looking for, the joy.
Yes.
I've been looking for the element that interests me enough to take it forward.
And now you say this, I remember our previous conversation about that, about the joy. Yeah. So it's like, and they're very specific. She'll figure out what it is soon. So time doesn't mean a lot in the Akashic Records, but soon, like the same with tarot readings, that is like when you divine, I always say the immediate future. So that is between now and 6 months, right? So when they say soon, I'm like, that is kind of around the corner-ish. It's not 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So then I asked, just because that's just a good question to ask, what should Lucinda do with all these other ideas? And then I got, if they truly intrigue her, she can write them down. The idea, that's it, right? Not actually write the story. And then I got, if it needs to be written by her, it'll stay, or the idea will return to her, even if she thinks she's forgotten about it.
Okay.
Yeah. That's when I started asking about the marketing. Are you ready for that?
I thought I'd got away with that. Yeah.
Okay. So I asked, how about marketing? Like Lucinda's relationship to marketing. And I immediately got, that's old. That's like a very old thing. And it's about survival, about surviving. And I got, so when I say old, that can mean thousands of years ago. Like we're talking about an old life. Like the other one was not that old, right? Even I saw a couple of lives, but it was still sort of like, maybe the past, 300, 400 years. This was like old. When it's old, I can just feel it. Like it's just really ancient stuff. So survival. And I got that being able to sell your goods equaled survival in that time. So there was a lot of pressure. There was too much pressure. And you got scared of that. Because if you're not good at selling your goods, that literally meant you're not going to survive.
Yeah.
If you cannot sell your produce or whatever you were making, creating, like it was done, right? But you were also scared of having to be, because I could see like marketplaces, right? And there's people like vendors screaming, like trying to sell their stuff. And you were scared of that.
Yeah.
Like, so I asked, like, why? What was it about that? And I got like, you didn't like the attention.
Yeah.
So that was one thing, but then it became really interesting that you had this sense that, I don't, how do I say this? You had it in your head that the louder you had to be to sell your goods, it must mean the more dire your situation is. So for you,
Right.
marketing equal
Yeah.
desperation.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Even the attention bit makes sense.
So it was very much like standing like in your little stall or corner of the market and being very loud about what you're trying to sell make you feel as if you were showing to the world how much you needed the money.
Yeah.
How bad your situation
Yeah.
was. So there was a thing there. So I asked, of course, how does that affect Lucinda's current life incarnation? And then there's still this little voice telling her that, and I'm curious if this is actually true or not, because I don't know this about you, that if you're remarkable enough, your stuff will sell itself. And then I got, she knows she knows this to be untrue, but there's this little part of her in her brain that prevents her from actually knowing that it is true.
Yes. I think that is true. I do think that is true.
I did not know this about you. So for me, that's when I get scared about readings, because I'm like, I'm going to say this thing and I might be completely shot down. Like, it's not true about me. Okay.
No, it would be, if I was giving someone advice, it would be, yeah, no matter how good your book is, you need to get it out there and you need people to read it. So I do believe that. At the same time, there are those people that miraculously sell a load of books with very little effort.
Are there though? Like, do you have?
Well, no, no, there aren't,
what do they call
because
that? Like,
it's just that you don't see the effort.
yeah. You don't see, and especially when it's like traditionally published, right? You don't see the marketing effort,
Yeah,
the book tours,
yeah.
the interviews.
Or even to get your book published, you don't see the effort that people put into loads of publishers.
Some people do share that. Like when you read Stephen King's On Writing, he's very honest about how dire their situation was before he finally sold the rights to Carrie. So he's very honest about how like he had this, every time he got a rejection, he nailed it. Like he had this sort of nail, I think, in his office. And so he had this whole, and that kept him going. So he could see the rejection, how many there were, and it just kept him pushing. And then, of course, he got a really, so I don't know if it's luck. I don't know if you can call it luck or just really hard work. Because when he did sell Carrie, his troubles were over instantly. And that doesn't happen, of course. Because a lot of people, when they do get an agent and then they get a publisher, it starts small because they're unknown.
Yeah.
Because when he sold Carrie, that was a lot of money instantly. So like all their troubles were like instantly over. At least that's how it's presented in the book. And that, of course, so that's the thing. But there was, of course, the amount of work that goes before that is immense.
I think the other thing is I'm always planning to do it in the future. It can always wait.
Well, the good thing is that this life, it's not about life and death. Right? So the fact that you struggle selling your books and marketing yourself, it's not keeping you and Marcus from having a roof over your head. You're not having to starve your dogs or yourselves. It doesn't really impact your life. And I'm wondering whether that's whether your ego latches onto that idea. See, it's not necessary to, go to the market, stand on my corner and start screaming to people to read my books.
It could also be the reason that I continue to embrace the day job as opposed to, wanting to throw it all to one side and commit to writing full time.
Are you okay? So I didn't ask about this, but are you partly wondering whether you might actually want to be a full-time author and you're just fooling yourself? Is that what you're saying?
I'd like. The problem is, I don't hate my job. There's many things I love about my job. In fact,
I need to correct your language a little bit. That is not a problem. That is a blessing.
Yeah. Yes, it is a blessing. Yeah.
Just carry on. That's just what I needed to point that out.
Yeah. So if I did hate my job, if something changed at work that made going to work difficult or unpleasant, and then I would want to be a full-time author.
But you can't just switch.
Or I would change jobs.
That's another option. But the thing is, you can't just switch. So you have the luxury now to build towards it.
Yeah.
So if that situation ever happens, then you could make the switch when you want to instead of when you're forced to.
Yes. Yeah. And that's interesting. I don't think I treat my writing as seriously as perhaps I should.
I get the feeling that between when we started doing this together and now, there has been a shift there. Because I feel you took it more seriously when we first started recording.
Yeah, I think that's about the things that are pulling on my time.
Okay, so it's more that, okay, so it's connected. Yeah. Okay. So obviously I then asked, what can Lucinda do this life to heal / change that? Because that's what we want to know, right? I had, first thing that came up, work through that particular limiting belief. That selling yourself equals desperation and need.
Yeah.
Because it's not the case this life, right? I also got Lucinda needs to start small, baby steps, smaller than baby steps. Like there's no need to go all in with the marketing. What she could do instead is do it like little step by little step, and then waiting to be comfortable enough with like one little step before she moves on to the next little step. So incorporate like one little thing, and once you're comfortable with that, incorporate the next thing, and then just like an oil stain, or like when you throw, let's pick a more environmental friendly one. When you throw a stone in the pond, a rock in the pond, right?
Yeah.
The ripple effect.
Yeah.
So what I got, and you're going to love this because this is a brainstorm activity, and that's very comfortable for you. I get here, the advice is brainstorm all the little and big things that you could be doing. And then, and I'm sort of visualizing color coding it because that's what I do, and you love your stationery. So then pick out the things first that you're most comfortable with, then pick out the things that you're a little less comfortable with, then a little more less comfortable with, until you reach, I'm highly uncomfortable. I would be highly uncomfortable doing this thing now. And then just slowly start with the first one that you're most comfortable with. And once you've incorporated that in your life, take the next one and then the next one. And then by the time that you've reached the stuff that you are highly uncomfortable with, you're probably not uncomfortable with anymore.
Yeah.
So treat it more like that. Like you don't have to do it, like it's not all or nothing. Start with really tiny little things that you can slowly incorporate into your writing life over time. I think that's great advice for everyone, by the way. So maybe
it's brilliant advice.
Maybe we should share this with our audience. Maybe we should. And then the last point I got was find marketing ways that are aligned with you. Things that lift her up, things that bring her, and it comes again, things that bring her joy. So yes, look at what others are doing, but then very eclectically pick out what resonates with you or the things that seem like fun or fun enough.
Okay.
So not, oh, they're doing it like that, so I have to do this too. Or they're writing their newsletter like this, so I need to copy that format. No, they're doing this. What in that resonates with me? And how can I pull this little thing from this and make it my own? In a way, because the thing is, if you don't like it, it's not sustainable. It's much better if it's something that energizes you than something you lose energy over.
Yeah.
So again, this is not just advice for you. This is advice for everyone listening. But specifically the joy. And again, and I'm not, and that I'm making the connection now myself. We were talking about the agency at the beginning. So again, like I know you struggle with things like writing newsletters because you feel you have to write the newsletter. So choose things.
Yeah.
Choose things for you. Choose things not because you feel you have to do them, but choose things because those seem really great ways to connect with your readership. And those can be as out of the box as whatever you want, as long as it aligns with you.
Yeah. Dogs.
More
dogs.
I was literally thinking dogs. Yeah. That was the first thing that came to mind. Dogs. Yeah. Are there dogs in your writing?
No.
Like my writing is filled with cats.
I worry about dogs though in stories.
Well, you write in space, so that's a bit of a thing. I write on Earth, so it's a bit easier for me to incorporate some animals.
I could incorporate dogs, but I do get nervous about their well-being in stories.
Yeah, well, I'm writing, in my writing, I'm trying to show how we should be treating animals.
That's really good. Actually, do you know what? That could just bring everything together for me.
Are you going to introduce
a purpose? Yes, a purpose. Something that I could write newsletters about. Yeah.
The thing is, and this is the thing, you need to take time to sit with this and realize, okay, what aspects of myself do I want to share, and what aspects of my readers would I like to connect with? Right? Like, I love it. Sometimes people who read my newsletter, they will send me pictures of their cats. And I also, like when I share pictures on Facebook or on Instagram, I will get like personal messages, or people will comment with a picture of their cat. Right? Because I'm like, oh God, like my whole desk is like covered in cats, right? And then I get like a picture back with somebody saying, well, I know this problem. And I'm like, that's great. I'm like, I love knowing that they share like, well, I don't have cats, but here's my dog, like taking up half my office space, right? I love that stuff. Okay? I love that stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the fun, the resonating,
is
important, because that's how you make it sustainable, right? Like if you ask things or talk about things that you really don't care about, it's going to be really hard in the long run. So if it's about caring, right?
That's part of the problem. I can't do superficial. I don't do superficial very well. So I'm not very good at faking things.
So don't even try it, because that's not what your readers are looking for. Anyway. They want to connect with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you keep it on the surface, like the ideal is to get like those super fans who do everything for you, right?
Yeah.
I don't think people latch on to an author. I don't latch on to authors who I don't feel I have a personal connection with.
Yeah.
I really care about their lives. So yeah, I think there has to be a really good dose of authenticity and like realness in their communication. Otherwise, I'm not interested. So this is we're almost at the end. And at the end, I always ask, is there anything else that Lucinda needs to know right now or needs to hear right now? So this is the final message I got. This is all about permission. Permission to be, to shine, to take up space. Why isn't she giving that to herself? Where does that come from? Who taught her not to want these things? That there wasn't actually an explicit thing, but usually when I get these questions, they're meant as journaling prompts. So you do, if you want, you can do some journaling. But yeah, so all of this, it's not just the marketing, but it's also the why are you not creating space for yourself to do the things that you really want to do? Like it's about creating space for the things that set your soul on fire and remembering what it is that sets your soul on fire. So basically, they summed it up as it's about permission. You need to give yourself permission to want these things and pursue these things.
Do you know, when you said that, I felt very emotional.
Well, luckily, that never means that I hit a nerve. So that's good.
Yeah.
That was yeah. No, that means it hits somewhere real and deep.
Yeah.
That's a sort of a gauge for me. Like, it resonates.
Yes.
Yeah. That there's truth.
Yeah.
So that's how they.
Yeah, I think I find it safer to be invisible.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason. I wasn't too happy when you shared right before we recorded this how many listeners we've been having. Even though you didn't share that for that reason, you shared it for another reason. But I was like, are you trying to scare me? Because I mean, I know some people will listen to this, but in my head, I can still tell myself this is just us. And as long as I can convince myself it's just us, it's much easier to be like fully myself about these things.
Yeah.
As soon as I start thinking X amount of people are going to hear me talk about this, oh no, like all my defense systems, all my masks slip into place. It's like ridiculous. Yeah. And I don't want that. So I have to just.
I can still pretend.
Yeah, I mean, I told myself before I hit record that doesn't matter. They're all gonna skip this episode anyway. That's kind of what I told myself.
Yeah, they'll go. Oh, that's
too much. It's too rubbish for me. Yeah. What nonsense is that? I don't need to know about it. If you tell me in a couple of months that this is our most listened to episode, I'm gonna scream probably. Okay, so that was the end. After that, that's another. You can enter the Akashic Records yourself, obviously, through meditations or meditations out there. I use a portal prayer to open and close your record. So after this, after I ask, is there anything else that we need to hear right now that Lucinda needs to know right now? I close the records. I cut all the cords between us, and that's when we started the call. So that's the reading. What do you say?
Oh, thank you for that. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a little bit of work to do. I can see that. I've got to rethink meditation.
Yeah, maybe take your friend up on the thing, because I mean, it cannot be a coincidence that she suggested that.
I know, it's a bit weird, isn't it? It is a bit weird. She lives quite close as well, so it wouldn't be difficult to do. I could even walk to her house.
I love it that the universe makes things really easy for us. It's like, how can we now convince ourselves not to do this thing that we're not comfortable with? If it's like in our face, like how can we? Yeah. Love it.
Okay. I will take her up on it.
So this is a lot of information, right? So this takes time to. I did one of the first read when I started doing this. When I started realizing I needed to take this more seriously, this particular skill, the Akashic Records readings, and really wanted to sort of grow as a reader. I started doing this for friends, as I know you're aware of that. Like this whole year, I'm doing free readings. I could actually, because I have some spots in October and November and stuff left, I could drop the link. So if people are actually listening to this and they want to do it, until the end of the year, I'm doing it for free. And then after that, it's going to turn into a paid offering. So I could share the link, actually, if anyone is interested. But so this friend of mine, they are still working through it. And it's been, it's June, right? I'm still waiting for Christmas break. So my sense of time is still a bit. I was thinking we were talking about the 6th of the month, and I thought February. So I'm like, I'm not stuck at Christmas. In my brain, it's now February, even though it's the 5th of June. So I think we did the reading probably September, October or something. So they are still working through it. So this is a process. This is an unraveling, basically. Yeah. And especially when you come across things that are like, yes, this pattern was there life after life. It's going to take some time to rewire your brain, or to recode your DNA, basically, to start doing things differently.
Yeah. But you have given me some real concrete things to do. It's easy for me to take Karen up on the meditation and see where that leads. And I'm not quite sure how to change my mindset about doing things, but it's something I can be aware of.
I think that's the start.
The marketing stuff feels doable.
That was the part where I got the most practical advice. It felt like that's it's like a page of notes for me. So that's like, so I'm really glad that even though you were like, I don't want to ask about that, I was like, I'm still gonna. So usually, just for the listeners at home, I don't usually do this. I don't do this at all. Like, I'm not asking questions that are not related. But I've known Lucinda for a long time. So this is more about our relationship and me knowing that I could get away with it. And also, I told her on beforehand that I was going to ask, and she didn't say, you cannot. So I will never, ever going to ask questions that I don't have consent for. But I knew, just knowing Lucinda, I knew I had permission. She was just being a bit squeamish about it. No, just a disclaimer.
Something else to do.
If you had been anybody else, I would have not done that, because that's not ethical.
Yeah.
And I would also, if we hadn't joked about it beforehand that I was going to ask it anyway, I would not have asked it, because it's not. I probably would not have gotten an answer, because you hadn't given me permission to do so. So it's a very ethical. Yeah. It's a very ethical space. So just as a little disclaimer, like, this is more a sort of an inside joke between Lucinda and I. This is not me not honoring her boundaries.
I'm glad you did ask. It was incredibly useful. It has been incredibly useful. And just the reassurance that I'm going to find the love in this story is,
and soon
it means I can relax a little bit.
Yeah. And this is why I think, I mean, this is one of the reasons I love the Akashic Records, is because it's all about, even though sometimes that can be a massive bitch slap, it's always done out of love, right? And this is actually like when you do spiritual work and you're wondering whether the messages you're getting are coming from the right place, like, as in, like, are they coming from the light or from the dark, right? It's a question that we have to ask ourselves. And the way you can know it's from the light is even when the content of the message feels hard, it's brought to you from a place of love. And this is a thing you need to face about yourself. But this is what you will get from it. And this is how you can deal with that. So if it feels mean in any way, and like unnecessarily harsh, then the message isn't coming from the right place. So you need to disregard that.
Yeah.
It's one of the first messages when I started doing this work. Like, how do you differentiate?
My head is a little bit clearer.
That's very good. That's very good. That's exactly what this is for. So you think you want to share this with our listeners? Are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's some really good stuff in there that'll help people, might help people.
Yeah, I feel some of the stuff was more universally applicable as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if people are like, this is really interesting, and if they hear it before the end of the year, and I still have some free spots left, they can sign up, and we'll do a session of our own. I'm glad it resonated because, like I said, it's always a bit. How are you going to receive it?
Yeah.
I have no control.
I can see how that's a big risk.
Yes, I have no control over that. The only thing I have control over is sharing the messages I got in the best, most positive, constructive way.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I have control over.
Yeah.
But I'm learning to be okay with that and trust.
Okay.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening. You can find us on Facebook or Twitter, or visit our website at divingintowriting.com. We'd love to hear from you, and if you'd like to leave us a review, we'd be ever so grateful. Bye for now.